Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are back with the Houston Rockets off-season preview. This team has been going through a lot of tough postseason losses in the last couple of years, including this year's loss in 5 games to the LA Lakers, where for large parts of the series, or I guess large parts of particular games in this series, this team just didn't look engaged and they didn't look like they wanted to win. And the main solution to that problem probably comes in the coach. And Mike D'Antoni has announced today that he will be leaving the team. He will not be inking a new extension for next season. So they're in the market for a new coach. The name that obviously comes to mind is Tyronn Lue, because he's a championship caliber coach and just seems like a guy that's in the rumors for every single team. Some other people that could work, Dave Yeager seems like a really good coach. So does Kenny Atkinson, but obviously Kenny didn't work great with KD and Kyrie in Brooklyn, so who's to say that he's going to mesh well with the superstars over here in Houston? So I'm not sure that that's a great fit. And Dave Yeager didn't stick in Sacramento because he kind of finagled financials, you could say. He wanted more money than the front office was willing to give him, and with Tillman Fertitta's constant not wanting to pay big bucks for the roster, that might carry over to the coaching, and he might not be able to pay Dave Yeager the amount that Dave wants. So maybe that's another fit that doesn't work great. Once you get past those type of names, you start thinking about an assistant coach. I think the Thunder have a good assistant coach that's been in rumors for a head coaching job. And with Russell Westbrook's OKC ties, obviously that could be a potential fit as the new head coach for this team. But I'm not really a coaching expert at all, so I shouldn't be talking about that too much. In terms of the draft, they have... here, let me check my notes quick. They have nothing. They have no picks. That's a byfactor of the aggressiveness that this front office has had. And it hasn't paid off. Really, they haven't even made the finals since before I was born. Like a decade before I was born. So this team is not in a great position unless they are able to step into a spot as a contender next season. And I thought they were a contender. I thought throughout this season they were probably the 4th or 5th best team in the NBA, behind the Lakers, Clippers, and Bucks. Although the Bucks proved in this playoffs that they are not on that echelon of team. And then I also had them kind of on the same level as the Celtics and Raptors. So between the 4th and 6th best team in the NBA is where I thought they were. And I thought that any of those 6 teams could have won the championship. But at this point, it looks like that was never going to happen for Milwaukee or Houston. So, yeah, Houston sacrificed a lot of their future assets in order to be a good but not great team. And obviously 2018 might have been their best shot at that, and since then it's just been going a bit downhill. That CP3 trade, they probably traded a better player and like 2 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps, I think it was what it was for Westbrook. And this year CP3 was a better player than Westbrook. So in retrospect, that deal did not work out in the slightest. So yeah, this team is in a lot of trouble. One way they could get out of this trouble is by trading a superstar in James Harden or Russell Westbrook, although I'm not sure how much they get back for Westbrook at this point. But I still don't think that that's likely, because I think they should give it one more chance with a different head coach than Mike D'Antoni. Maybe a new coach can come in and give this team some new life, new energy, and take them to the promised land. I'm not saying I think it'll happen, because we've just seen this team flame out in the playoffs too many times before, but it's definitely a possibility. James Harden is a guy capable of being the best player on a championship team, so as long as you've got him, I'm not counting the team that he's on out. Eric Gordon is another guy that could get traded, but I just don't see it. His extension has like 4 years left on it, and he's getting paid about, I think, $15 million per year, and he does not really look like he's worth that right now. I think the most likely player to get traded on this roster is Daniel House, and that's because of the whole situation we saw with him in the bubble. He really let his team down, and I'd be surprised if he's wanted in that locker room next year. So I would expect him to get traded. What they could get for him, I'm not sure. Maybe an early second-round pick. But this team is win now, so maybe they put together Eric Gordon and Daniel House, and that can get them like Kevin Love to be the third star on this team. If I'm Cleveland, do I do that? No. Maybe it's Blake Griffin. If I'm Detroit, do I do that? No. The interesting one is Al Horford. Maybe you trade Eric Gordon and Daniel House for Al Horford, but I'm not even sure that trade works with the whole salary cap. So I think Eric Gordon is not going anywhere. So Daniel House is likely going to be traded either for a draft pick or another player of meh capability. So that's it for this team on the trade aspect. Maybe they can flip Robert Covington for a player of similar level. It all comes down to whether they want to stick with the same stylistic approach that they had this season with playing small ball, or if they want to make the switch over to a more traditional play style. I could see either one working out. They might want to try the small ball with a different coach. But I could also see them saying, that didn't work. Let's throw it out the window, sign a new coach, run a new scheme. And if that happens, a guy that I'd like to see them target in free agency is Marc Gasol, because he has that championship pedigree that he earned with the Raptors last season. He's a really, really good big guy. Obviously, we saw him fall off a little bit in this playoffs this year, so I think you might be able to get him on a bit of a bargain deal to come play for you as a championship contender. And he can be a starter-level player for this team. So if they break away from that 5-out, small ball, whatever scheme, then he'd be a guy I'd like to see them target. Otherwise, some other free agent guys, they could target one of the two Nuggets guys in Paul Millsap and Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant, I think, is going to get too much money to be in their kind of range of the amount of they can pay a free agent, but Millsap has slowed down in this playoffs, and he has not looked like the player he once was. So I would expect the Nuggets to allocate their salary cap money into other players like Jeremy Grant. So I could see them letting Millsap walk, and I actually think it's quite likely. So why not sign Paul Millsap, and he can be another guy who can play that small ball 5, play alongside PJ Tucker in some bigger lineups as far as Houston goes. Otherwise, in free agency, they should try to retain Austin Rivers and Jeff Green. Those are really the only two free agents that were in their rotation this season. Austin Rivers is a player option, but it's only like $2.5 million. And I think I could see him declining that and trying to get maybe double or triple that on the open market. He's a guard who can score off the bench, so maybe somebody throws him $6 or $7 million annually. But if he does accept that, then they really just have to bring back Jeff Green, and they can completely run it back with this same roster and make another championship run. Is it worth it? That's a whole nother question. Like I said, I would not count this team out if they have this same roster next season, because James Harden is just that good. But they need a new coach that's going to do a better job of keeping him fresh for the playoffs, because we've seen him flame out in the playoffs so many times now. We saw it in Game 7 against OKC. We saw it in Game 4 in this Lakers series. I said Game 6 knowing that it was the second last game of the series, but clearly this did not go to 7. It ended in 5. So in Game 4, Harden had a 2-for-11 game, and it's games like that that just show that he might have been overtaxed a little bit too much in the regular season, and even in the first 3 quarters of playoff games. Like, I think that the best you're going to get out of James Harden, like, he might actually be a guy who's capped out at 34 minutes, because he does so much handling the ball that you might not be able to play him those heavy minutes because of how much he's exerting himself in the minutes that he plays. So, like I said, I would not count this team out if they run it back, just because maybe the new coach can figure something out, whoever it may be. I'm sure that news will be coming out at some point. Their potential 2020-2021 rotation, like I think the most likely thing for this team is to run it back, with the exception of trading Daniel House, because I don't think that he can be on a roster where he let the team down by breaking the rules the way he did. So I think their potential rotation could be something like Westbrook at the 1, Harden at the 2, Eric Gordon at the 3, Covington at the 4, PJ Tucker at the 5, and then Marc Gasol, Jeff Green, Austin Rivers, and Ben McLemore off the bench. I really like Marc Gasol going to this team, and I think it'd be a great fit. I also think that they could bring him in and not even start him and still keep that small ball aspect to their team, but also just have a reliable big guy off the bench that you can go to if the situation and scenario calls for it. That team I just listed, those are pretty good. That's a pretty good team. They've got one I'll say top 8 player. I'm not sure that I put him over Anthony Davis and Jokic. Harden, that is. So maybe he's not top 6 anymore. Maybe he's more like top 8. Luka. Not sure I put him over Luka. I'll have to think about that. I think I'll come out with like my top 30 players in the NBA after the playoffs are over. I'll come out with a video like that. But they have a top 20 guy in Westbrook. And then Gordon, Covington, and Tucker are all pretty good starter-level players. If they can sign a Marc Gasol, retain Jeff Green and Austin Rivers, and Ben McLemore is a guy that has, I think, a non-guaranteed deal for like $1 million next year. So I'm sure they'll bring him back on that because he was a pretty solid role player for them this year. So obviously there's potential here with this team, and I hope that they don't try to break it up. They don't trade Harden or Westbrook, because I think that with a new coach, if the coach is the right guy, they make the right signing, this team will have championship aspirations once again. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you enjoyed. Leave a comment on what you think about the Houston Rockets and what they should do here. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me, and I will see you all again very soon.